Hello, my name is Jonathan Myers with SCSU TV.
And I'm Bill Smelser, Technical Director of SCSU TV.
And today we have a special interview for you guys. We're with the band Lux Enormes. They're from Delaware, and they are a hardcore band. And why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Daniel Damasio. I'm the bass player.
Elijah, that's you.
I'm Elijah. I'm the vocalist.
I'm Ryan. I play drums.
And Simon is not here, but he plays guitar.
All right, so why don't you talk to us a little bit about how the band formed? How did you guys meet?
Well, it started I forget how many years ago, but I was in more of a punk band called Societal Infection, and we were looking for a second guitarist, and we met. That's how I met Simon. Eventually, that band kind of broke up and stuff, and Simon and I started our own project, and just looking through new members, found Ryan, found another vocalist who wasn't Elijah, who later became Elijah, and then here we are now.
Yeah, I'm the late addition.
Yeah, so I really liked y'all's EP. I've listened to it throughout the whole week. I think it's really good.
Thank you.
I kind of had a question about the production. I listened to a lot of death metal and hardcore punk on Bandcamp, and I rarely hear stuff that sounds as good as y'all's recordings. So I was just wondering how y'all went about the production process for that EP.
You think it sounded good?
Yeah, I thought it sounded pretty good.
And that makes me feel good because all the drums were recorded in my basement, and I've been trying to not become a studio engineer by any means, but I've been trying to get my drums to sound good on recordings, sound the way I want them to. And when I first started out, they were terrible. But yeah, it's basically all done in my basement. Dan tracked bass from home. Simon tracked guitars at his house, sent them over, and Elijah tracked vocals at his place because we couldn't really get together when we were doing all this.
So this entire album was recorded over quarantine then?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with that. That's really cool.
Ryan, you assembled everything in audio editing software, or was it?
No, I got to say Simon has a lot of credit for it too, because there was some issues. There would be times where I could only get the mix to sound good on my computer, so I would just have him send everything else to me. But there were also times where I couldn't get the mix to sound good on my computer, so I would send the whole drum track to him, and he would just drop it in and then, edit the levels wherever he saw necessary. And our second EP is 3/4 of the way done already.
From the demos that aren't even completely finished, it's actually, in my opinion, sounding a lot better than the first EP.
For each of you, how do you want the music you make to make people feel when they listen to it, when they see you live? What reactions are you looking for when you play?
Smiles.
Oh man, yeah, pretty much. Like when I write lyrics and when I'm listening to music, it's always that it's an escape. You can just forget about problems and everything. And even in bands that I've been in where it's just practice, that energy that is just there in the room between musicians it's something else. It is hard to explain.
I'm going to agree with both of them, really. For me, with heavy metal, even again without meaningful lyrical content, it's at its core, I think, a stress reliever. After a hard day at work or just anything that's been really bugging me, if I get in the car and blast it, something I can scream to, let out my emotion to. And on top of that, on a day where I'm not feeling like crap, it's, still that it still makes me feel even better than before.
Kind of going back to Elijah, I had a question about songwriting, actually. I wanted to know how you come up with song topics.
Since I was young, I've always had a passion for music, and I've always been writing stuff down, even if back then they weren't good. I've been in a few like projects and like I've released solo stuff, so I've always been writing like lyrics and everything. Some of these songs that I wrote for the EP, I got the file, I listened back, and I started to mess around with the flow, and I wrote the lyrics then and there. But with songs like Nephilim, I had some of those lyrics already like written down, and I just kind of translated them over to fit that. It depends. Like, I know I've written songs before based on the current state of the world. Certain things, sometimes it's like how I'm feeling, sometimes it's based on what's happening around me, or sometimes it's for the jokes. Like, Absolute Carnage has no real meaning. It's just a play off of the title, and it's meant to just like get you going. Like if we play it live and you're in the pit, it's a fast-paced song. It's just meant to hype you up. I also like to base things out of not religion but mythology. That's why like Nephilim, I'm not sure if you guys know that like a Nephilim is what you get when a demon and a human mate. I got that from like demonology, Christian belief and everything. I also like to mess around with a lot of like Greek mythology and stuff, and how different creatures also can be like symbolism for feelings and emotion. So to write about them is also kind of like where I get a lot of my song titles and like topics from.
How did you start singing hardcore? Because I know it's everybody has a different way of going about it. So
yeah, back in the day when I was maybe 8 or 9 when I first heard Chester Bennington and his voice graced my ears, and I was like, okay, guitars exist, heavy music exists, and didn't know that. And since I heard Chester, I have been trying to mimic that. I didn't know what it was called at first. And as I grew up, Google became more accessible, and I started to like Google how to sound like Chester Bennington. And I heard about screaming. And then I found other artists, like seen bands like Of Mice and Men, Pierce the Veil, Black Veil Brass, people who traditionally screamed in the emo era of things. I started to listen to them and how they had more of a refined technique and they used it a lot more. And broadening my horizons from Linkin Park to that, I started to want to learn how to scream. And for the longest time, I only had YouTube as a resource, and that got me nowhere. I remember like being 13, drinking like warm water because they were like, warm water helps. And I was like trying to scream, but it was all coming from the throat. And it wasn't until 2017 when I actually started to take it a little more serious, and I refined the technique and began to practice a little more on a daily basis to develop that sound.
So this is kind of a generic question, probably one y'all expected, but I'd like to hear from everybody. Who are y'all's influences when it comes to music?
My favorite part about that kind of question is as soon as someone asks it, every band you've ever listened to just leaves your mind. In terms of getting into music, Linkin Park is the very first, I want to say, metal band that I listened to, or at least a band that had like an edge to their sound. So I give them a lot of credit. In terms of my bass playing, David Ethelston, I think you pronounce it, from Megadeth. He has this technique of changing whether or not the bass line is really simple or really complex to fit the song, that I take a lot of influence in something for our next EP. There's a very difficult riff that Simon wrote. I don't know how he did it, but for half of it, I play something really simple, and then I make it sound chaotic by mirroring what he's playing. Yeah, like Linkin Park and Megadeth, and among others.
For me, same thing, Linkin Park for sure. It's funny how Linkin Park is that one band that bridges people together. After Chester, I got into Suicide Silence, so Mitch Lucker's vocals definitely shaped how I started to approach vocals and wanted to do them. Well, it was Matt from Trivium as well. Their earlier stuff, CJ from Thy Art Is Murder, CJ from Lorna Shore as well. That's where I get most of my tunnel throat style vocals from. Austin Dickey from For the Likes of You as well. I put together most of their techniques, which I guess is not their technique because it's not trademarked, but a lot of their techniques is where I get most of my inspiration from.
I also got into heavy music through Linkin Park, but also it's a little bit cringy to say this, but Limp Bizkit. I'm still a huge Limp Bizkit fan, and I don't know, like my main influences when it came to drumming, I'd say my biggest influence, hands down, is Abe Cunningham from Deftones. He's just such a solid drummer. Like, I just rip him off all the time. I just copy his grooves, and that's why we sound like a decent band.
Any tips on people trying to start a band? On, like,
More
how to do
specifically,
it?
like a hardcore band, I think
Yeah.
would be better for y'all's expertise.
I would say live in the Philadelphia area because you'll get a lot of shows. If you're looking to, start a band and like be somewhat serious about it, I'd say, take it a little bit serious. Make sure you practice, with and without your band. And I don't know, like just be open to experience. I don't know, just try to have fun. I mean, it's music. Like playing music is supposed to be fun, I think. So, while you should take it serious to get better, also, just enjoy it.
I would like to say invest in recording equipment because studios, at cheapest, which probably cost you like $40 an hour, and then more high-end ones would be even more than that. But and gear isn't cheap, but if you invest in your own gear, you get to a point where you're taking this seriously as in recording and releasing music. You're going to, in the long run, be saving so much time by recording by yourself. And, there's tons of channels on YouTube and such that can teach you, like Glenn Fricker and Spectre Sound Studios, who can teach you how to use this equipment and make you sound decent. And also what Ryan said about, make sure you're having fun, because if it's not fun, then, it's forced and it might not sound as good and you're not going to be happy with it. And if you're not happy with it, then, there's no point.
Yeah. And building from that, both of them are right. Fun is definitely one of the biggest things, but also I think that you should always be open to other ideas. And even if it contradicts what you want to do, you also have to remember that it's not your band alone, and it's everyone's band. So definitely be open to taking criticism, be open to other people's ideas and change. Because at the end of the day, music is not meant to be uniform. It's not meant to be one thing. And even if it means leaving your comfort zone, I still recommend definitely trying out other things, trying out other people's ideas before you even say no. You have to be open-minded about it. Before I joined here, I have never done weird tempos, and these guys are all about the weird tempos.
That's a good point, because if it was just Simon and I controlling everything, it wouldn't sound nearly as good, because what Ryan added with the drums being kind of more that new metal-y, groovy feel, we would have never thought of. And I think that's one of the things that sets our band from other bands in our local area, because a lot of us in this little tri-state area have similar riffs and stuff, but no one else, to my knowledge, has those groovy drums.
Another question, y'all kind of answered this a little bit before, but I understand you have a second EP that you're already working on, but apart from that, how would you like to see your band grow in the future?
A few of the songs that are on the second EP are songs that we've written, a while ago. There's a song on there called After This Song, ... And we wrote that, I'd say, a little over a year ago. And it's not anything like what we've put on the first EP, but I still think it's our sound, just because there's weird time signatures throughout parts in the song. But at the end of it, you're like, oh, okay, that was a Lux Enormes song. I don't know. We just like to try different stuff. I mean, eventually we're gonna put a jazz break in one of our songs. So, spoiler alert.
I'm really
Pretty tight.
excited to hear this stuff.
I'll mostly agree with Ryan, and I don't want to sound greedy, but my main goal is to be able to quit retail and actually not necessarily get rich, but be able to live off of making music.
Yeah. Same here. Definitely, hopefully make a living off of it. But I don't know. Short term, I definitely want to just grow with the dudes and play some shows, get more music out there, see where it takes us, and that's probably it for now.
All right, so Simon's actually now able to join us. Will, I know you had a question for him. Why don't we hear that?
Yeah, so this is kind of for Dan too, I guess. But I was just wondering, I mean, the riffs on y'all's EP are really good. Like I play guitar and like I was super impressed. So I was wondering like what your riff writing process, and I guess the same for the bass.
I'll be completely honest. For most of the riffs on that EP, a lot of it's just kind of I kind of have some general idea of what key it's going to be in, and then I just kind of BS it, to be perfectly honest, for most of them. My Ass was the only song in there that was written in, I used Guitar Pro and actually like wrote that down and wrote sheet music for it and everything. But pretty much everything else was just kind of BS while jamming at one point or another. You know, if you spend enough time jamming, eventually you come up with enough stuff that you can eventually just shove it together and you get a song.
All right, finally, last question. Where can we find your music?
It's out everywhere on all major platforms except for SoundCloud, and I don't think we're on Bandcamp yet. But Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, all the other million ones that DistroKid works with that we have no clue about, and you can just find us on Instagram and Facebook by typing in at Lux Enormes. LuxEnormes. If everyone follows us, we will very much enjoy coming up to Connecticut to play a show.
Oh yeah, I'd pay top dollar for that.
No.